Okay, so this problem is more of a logic problem. And when we're investigating problems like this that have to do with strategy, they can seem pretty impenetrable at first because of how many different actions the players can take, and obviously the infinite different starting positions. So we should just get into some very simple cases first. So we have m and n. These are how much the piles start with. So it should be obvious that if m starts with 1 and n also starts with 1, that Xavier, or whichever player goes first, can win instantly just by taking 1 out of each pile, right? So we'll say this is a win for Xavier. We'll write x. Similarly, if n is 1 and n is 0, well, Xavier can just take the rock from the m pile and instantly win. And same thing with 0 and 1. So all three of these are clearly wins for Xavier, no matter how Yasmin plays, because Yasmin never gets to play, right? So let's go into a bit more complicated situation. Let's say 2, 0. So Xavier has three situations, three moves that he can take here. First of all, really only two moves. Because removing one from each pile isn't possible. He can only remove one from this pile, or he can move one from this pile to the other pile. So either he removes one from this pile, from the 2 pile, and therefore he gets into a situation 1, 0, which is obviously going to be a win for Yasmin because she can just remove the last stone. Or he can move one from the 2 pile to the 0 pile, and then obviously, again, it's 1 in each pile now, and Yasmin can, again, just win by removing both from each pile. So this situation is actually a win for Yasmin, because no matter what Xavier does, he puts Yasmin in a winning situation. So let's look now at 2, 1. Well, we know that 2, 0 is a losing situation for whoever's turn it is. So Xavier wants to look at this and put Yasmin in a losing situation. And he can do that very simply by removing one from this pile. That puts Yasmin in the situation 2, 0, 2 in one pile, 0 in the other. And therefore Yasmin is forced to make a move that allows Xavier to win. So this is actually a win for Xavier. Okay, so now let's look at a very important example, but also a bit more complicated one, 2, 2. So this is, a complicated situation. There's a lot to work through here, but let's just look at it simply. There are really only 3 moves that Xavier can take. He can move one from this pile to the other. He can move one from this pile back. But those are basically the same move because the piles are indistinguishable, right? It's symmetrical. So first of all, let's say Xavier removes one from one of the piles. So we're left with 1, 2 then. Well, now Yasmin can remove the one from this pile, and then Xavier's left in 2, 0, which is an unwinning situation. So Xavier's going to lose in that situation. If he takes one from one pile, he's going to lose. Similar, you can see this even easily by saying that if he removes one from one pile, he's in 1, 2, which is a winning situation for whoever's turn it is, right, as we just pointed out up here. So let's look at his other options. If he goes to 1, 1, if he removes one from each pile, well, this is clearly winning for Yasmin because she can just, take one from each pile and win instantly. And lastly, if he moves one from one pile to the other, now it's 3, 1. But if Yasmin takes one from each pile, then it's going to be 2, 0, and again, it's Xavier's turn, and so Xavier's going to lose. So again, this situation is complicated, but it's actually a win for Yasmin. And so after we've done a bit of an investigation, we can actually look at a more general case over here. So let's say that these are both even numbers, that m and n both start as even numbers. So let's write them as, I'll use k, right? K is an even number, and L is an even number, and we'll say that they start as k and L. Okay, so now Xavier has 5 moves he can do, and it gets a bit complicated, but I'll write them all down here. He can remove one from each, in which case we're left with k minus 1 and L minus 1. He can remove one from just k, so it's k minus 1, L. He can remove one from just L, so it's k, L minus 1. He can move one from k to L, making k minus 1, L plus 1. Or he can move one from L to k, making k plus 1, L minus 1. So it might be a bit confusing to use, letters, variables here, but really these are just the number of stones left in the pile, and k and L are starting numbers. And crucially, they're even, right? Okay, so what can Yasmin respond with in each of these situations? Well, let's say, and this will make sense in a second, but let's say Yasmin wants to keep the numbers even, right? In this situation, he can remove one again from each pile to make k minus 2, L minus 2. In this case, she can remove one from k again and make k minus 2, L. In this case, she can remove one from L again and make k, L minus 2. In this case, she can remove one from each and make k minus 2, L. And finally, in this case, she removes one from each as well and makes k, L minus 2. So in all of these situations, two things are true. First of all, Yasmin has managed to bring the total in each pile back to an even number. So they start as even, Xavier made them not even, and then Yasmin brought them back to even. So we're sort of back in a similar position. But also, notice that in each of these, the total number of stones has decreased, right? In this one, it's decreased in both piles, and the rest of them, it's decreased in only one pile, but it still has decreased. So basically, what this tells us is that Yasmin can keep Xavier in a downward spiral of just going down and down and down and down on even numbers only. Because basically every time Xavier tries to move away from even numbers, Yasmin not only brings him back to even numbers, but also takes the total amount down. And so eventually, Yasmin's going to get him into this 2-0 situation, right? Eventually, since the number keeps going down and down and it keeps staying even, we'll get to where there's only 2 stones in each pile after Yasmin's turn, and both piles even, right? And if there's 2 stones in both piles, and both piles are even, then that means there's 2 in one and 0 in the other. And so we know that eventually Yasmin will get to this point where she makes a move that puts Xavier into a 2-0 position, and then Xavier is going to lose as we investigate it up here, and Yasmin will win. So the idea is that Yasmin can keep making moves that puts Xavier back to an even situation where both piles are even, and just keeps bringing the totals down. So we know now that those are the situations where Yasmin can win, right? Is where both piles start even, because there's nothing Xavier can do to escape just going down and down on even numbers. What about the other situations, right? So we've done the situation where it's even and even. I'll write EE, and that's a win for Yasmin. Now what about even odd, right? Well, notice Xavier can go we know that whoever's turn it is, if it's even and even, whoever's turn it is, they're going to lose, right? Xavier takes the first turn, Yasmin wins on even. On even odd, Xavier's first turn can be removing 1 from the odd pile. And then we'll have even and odd minus 1, but an odd number minus 1 is always an even number. And so we'll be left with even on Yasmin's turn. And so Yasmin is actually going to end up losing this game that started on even odd, because Xavier can put her in an even situation, which, as we just discussed, is losing. So this is actually a win for Xavier. And very similarly, odd, Xavier can start by removing 1 stone from each pile. And so we'll have odd minus 1, odd minus 1. And these are maybe different odd numbers, but it doesn't matter. Either way, you're subtracting 1 from an odd number, you're getting an even number, right? And so again, this also leads to an even situation for Yasmin, so this is also a win for Xavier. So we know that even amount of stones in both piles is a win for Yasmin, and any other situation, I should mention that the other way around, odd even is also obviously a win for Xavier, for the same reason that even odd was. And so these are actually all the situations, because obviously every number is either odd or even, and these are all the combinations of odd and even numbers. So we know that in 3/4 of games, in the games where it isn't the case that both are even, Xavier can put Yasmin in a losing situation and whittle her down on even numbers, and Yasmin can do that if they start on even numbers.